Welcome back to the Composing Made Simple podcast. This is episode 19. On today's episode, we're going to talk about building an online presence. Next, we're going to talk about Native Instruments and them discontinuing some of their older products that ran on Contact. Then we're going to roll into our picks of the show. So I hope you take the time to listen to this episode. So let's get on into it.
Composing Made Simple. We talk about something new every show. Composing Made Simple. Grab a coffee, have a seat, and let's go.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Composing Made Simple podcast. Welcome back. Of course, we are here today with Mr. Todd and Curtis. And of course, I'm Chris. And today we wanted to talk about some kind of topic that was, something we haven't really done before. And it's kind of about our presence and how we get work. And this is cool because we all have different experiences with this, but we kind of want to discuss how necessary it is to have like an online presence versus, being in person and making connections physically, word of mouth, and all those things in order to get work in our field. I thought it'd be cool to talk about because again, there's so many different approaches to it and people have different beliefs on it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of all making connections in the first place. So why don't we start things off with Curtis and see where Curtis stands in this area?
Yeah, my online presence is mostly just my website. Really. I mean, I used to stream on Twitch sometimes, but that's sort of something that's kind of gone by the wayside as I've had to work on stuff that, you can't really like just show to people. So basically and I have a YouTube channel, basically my online presence is to just kind of put something down in the popular spaces, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and a website. And I kind of leave them alone. Like I don't do a lot once I get them to a place. I know, Chris, you have like a really active YouTube channel where you are constantly keeping it updated. And that's awesome. I wish I had the drive / work ethic to do that.
Well, we'll talk about the reasons why in a second, but continue.
So yeah, that's kind of just my general approach is just this sort of have something there, keep it moderately active and kind of just kind of post when I feel like it, basically. Right. I know my website has been mentioned to me. People who have hired me for things or I've gotten jobs have mentioned, yeah, we went to your website, we liked it, we liked the stuff you had there. So as long as I guess that continues to happen, I'll just kind of let that be. But yeah, I mean, I don't really I try to be active on some forums and some communities like ours and Discord, and I try to be active on VI Control just because there's a lot of professionals in there. It's kind of a little bit of networking. Yep. But yeah, online presence for me is kind of a pretty casual thing. So,
yeah, I mean, without your Twitch channel, Curtis, and probably YouTube, I think is where I first found you. I wouldn't even know who you are. So, I mean,
I really like doing Twitch. Yeah. I just can't.
Well, yeah, right now I totally understand. Yeah, I like doing Twitch too. I mean, it's fun because it's great to have an audience sometimes. I mean, because there's some people that come in and tell you, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But it's great to have when you're trying to compose and have that, people there, kind of giving you that instant feedback, because we don't get that, we compose alone. Yeah. So, but yeah, without that, I wouldn't even know who Curtis is. And that's kind of how I met Chris as well, because I used to stream on YouTube and Chris was in my live stream and he sent a track to review, and that's kind of how this happened. I interviewed him and then bam, here we are 2 years later. We have a podcast. So I think it's important. I'm kind of where Curtis is at. I was like Chris, and I was trying to upload YouTube all the time. I just got burned out, and personal stuff happened in my life, so it depends, on that. I have 2 children, 2 daughters, younger daughters, so they take a lot of my time, and music is when I can fit it in when I can. Like I'm at a point in my life that's just where it's at. If I was in my early 20s. And I didn't have, I wasn't married and had kids and all this stuff and responsibilities. Yeah, I would probably be doing YouTube constantly live streaming, and I did that, a long time ago. But back when that was happening, it wasn't even around. So me and Curtis are kind of like in a weird spot. But like for Chris, he's just up and coming, so he gets it more and he has more free time. As far as I know, I know he's busy with lessons and composing and stuff like that. So I'm kind of in the same boat as Curtis. Is I just kind of post when I can. I know my YouTube channel, I haven't really posted lately. I just don't. There's a thing about like posting great content. Like there's a thing with the algorithms of YouTube and social media now with these algorithms. Like you have to post, even if it's not good. It's just getting content out the door. But that's just not my philosophy. Like I want to make sure I'm putting out a video that's going to stand, like 5 years from now. Like somebody could still get value out of it. Like I think that's the important thing. It's like just putting up a video to put up a video. It just doesn't make sense. But I know that's not how YouTube works. And it's like, well, whatever. And that's why you get crap content, and people are just putting up stuff to put up stuff for numbers situations. But yeah, I don't really use Twitter much anymore. I've kind of pulled back from social media because it really gets on you. Like, you know what I mean? Like your self-esteem, and like you just see a bunch of negative all the time. It affects me personally. So, I mean, I don't know how it affects you guys. Like Facebook, I pulled away from Facebook years ago. Like I go on and check it, when I'm bored and just kind of see what's going on to keep kind of tabs on a few people, that I was close to or whatever. But I don't really participate, like I would say Chris is probably out of all of us is the most. I know, like, because I see Chris is, because we're friends on Facebook, and like he posts in some of the circles and stuff like that, which is great, and I know why he's doing it is for networking. So, and as far as Curtis and me, like I don't do this for a living, so I'm not out there networking. I kind of started the Composing Made Simple thing, the Discord, and people come in there, and that's how people know me or they find me from the videos that I've done. But it's never directly got me work. So, because I don't really post my music on my YouTube channel, which I should, and I'm just not committed to doing composing, I guess. So it's partially my fault, in that sense, because I'm not pursuing it,
Right.
So now let's hear from a real expert.
There you go. Hans, come on.
Well, it's definitely an interesting topic, I think, because I'm hearing from where you guys are coming from. You have probably way more responsibilities than I do. I'm in my mid-20s, so I graduated a couple years ago, and I make my full-time living teaching piano. So the way that works is the opposite of a regular person's 9 to 5, right? Like I work full-time on weekends, and I teach from like 4 to 9 on weekdays. So I have my mornings and afternoons relatively free, unless I have a few Skype students here and there. Excuse me. So that gives me a little more time to kind of record stuff whenever I want to. But in terms of like content, yeah, like 100% of my work when it comes to arranging and mock-up stuff comes from YouTube, and every single project I got was because of someone heard one of my videos. They saw a tutorial video. That's how they hired me for lessons. Or if they want me to arrange something, they hear one of my original pieces and then they reach out to me directly. So I have a very necessary reason to continue. And now that I'm starting to venture into like online business, and that's something I want to pursue in the near future, content really is the way for me to do it. And the ultimate goal is to be able to create kind of like in-depth resources that I can sell in the future. And content is kind of the way to prove myself to the community, so that, at least they know that I have an idea of what I'm talking about. And if I can provide value to someone else, then, and if that's, if that helps them in a certain way, then it's great. So that's kind of my reason for doing it. And I'm kind of doing this series right now where I'm trying to upload a video a day, and it is difficult because I'm like, okay, I just recorded 3 videos in advance for the week, and then the day comes where those 3 videos are exhausted. I'm like, oh, I have to record 7 more for this week. Okay, let's go.
I remember that.
Yeah. But it's been a lot of fun so far, and I've tried to keep everyone under 10 minutes. But I specifically went on forums like VI Control and Facebook to ask people specifically what kind of questions they had about, and most of the questions came from newbies, obviously, like people who are just starting out. And I'm fortunate that I'm doing for a couple years now that I have most of those answers. So I've been kind of batching those videos together and working on it. And yeah, if it doesn't lead to anything, then that's fine. But at least I'm practicing some work ethic stuff, and it's been a lot of fun so far. But again, the main reason I do it is because I mean, all my work has come from it, so I have a good reason to continue. And actually, because of YouTube, I might have my first official like film to score, and kind of in the vein of Beauty and the Beast or like some kind of Disney thing. So it might be interesting. I'll see how that goes. But I have YouTube to thank for that. So
it's effective. I mean, YouTube is a thing. I mean, I should say I've never got anything. I've gotten connections and people reach out, and asking me for stuff, and so I would say, yeah, it is. And like I said, but I don't share much. I think I have like 3 tracks maybe that I did, and they're not even that great. So, like I know I'm not that great, from what I do, but like, you guys are further along in, like, Chris, you play piano, and you've been in this a long time and know a lot more theory and stuff like that, and like orchestration and stuff. Like I don't, I've just learned from listening, and for me, so I've just come from it a different way. If I was pursuing it, yeah, I think I'd be a lot more. And I tried, and I think one thing that came into my mind when you were talking, Chris, is, yeah, even though you put the video up today, 6 months or a year later, that video might hit somebody. So you might not get immediate results for uploading. Like, it's going to take a while because your video's got to get into the search engines. People got to be searching. So there's this whole other thing about YouTube and stuff that people don't realize. Like, you got to learn the algorithms, how to search, how to find your videos, make sure you're doing topics people are actually searching for, the keywords. And so that's something that I learned doing, YouTube and stuff. And it's a job in itself. I mean, people think it's easy. Like, these people that are making millions or whatever off YouTube, it's like, it's a lot of freaking work. Being a content creator is a lot of work. And I remember when I lost my job about a year or two ago, and I was freelancing. I was doing freelance work, and I was trying to do Twitch, and I was trying to do YouTube, and we started the podcast. So I was doing all this stuff, and it was literally more work than a 9-to-5 job. I mean, it literally is, because I remember because when you have to stream, when you live stream, you have to sit in that seat, and I was streaming like 3 hours, I think, every day on Twitch, and I wasn't doing music. I was playing like video games and stuff like that, because it was kind of like for me, it was kind of like just get away, kind of like mind numbing, and it was fun. And I actually miss it. I wish I could do it more, because it's really cool, because you get to meet people and talk and have an audience. And I used to live stream and I think if you are getting started and you don't have a social presence, I would start YouTube first, because you can do it on your own time. And don't worry about quality of it. I mean, the best thing you need to worry about is audio when you do videos, and try to get decent lighting. But you don't have to go out and spend a fortune. Just use if you have an iPhone or a nice decent HD camera on your phone, you'll be fine. And if you have a mic, just record additional audio to it and put it up, and you'll be fine. And I would say if you're a composer or writing music, do live streaming of what you do, because people will find that fascinating, because they want to see your process, and it's adding content to your channel, and you're getting exposure to your music. That's how I found Curtis, because Curtis does that, or he did that, and I'm sure he'll do it when he can again in the future.
Yeah, I will. I would like to do it more. I'm just, it's like when.
Right. No, I understand.
As soon as I can, I will. But yeah, and that's the other thing is like about online presence too, is that like my online presence on Twitch or YouTube is going to be significantly more robust and regular when I'm not working on a project, right? Like a big project, right? Like not just a big game necessarily, but like even like when I'm working on like like a student film, right? Like some student contacts me out of the blue. Hey, I heard your stuff on Spotify. You want to score my student film? Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, sure. Here's the here's my per minute, blah blah blah. Does that work? Okay, great. And even then, like I won't stream that usually, right? Because I don't. It involves content that I don't own, right? So during those times, my online presence is very low.
Right.
But between those things, I love to do it.
Or I guess you
do
could get permission from the filmmaker, because that gives the film exposure too.
Yeah,
so.
sometimes they like it. Sometimes they're like,
Right.
"Meh." Well, and with films, it's weird because film festival rules about
Right.
it having been quote unquote distributed are weird, so they don't like you to show it. But like games, like I know like Chucklefish loves it when I like show their like I'm working on their music and stuff like that. So it just depends. Like indie games usually love you to do it. So it just kind of depends, but yeah, that's the other thing to think about is that like sometimes these things go through an ebb and flow. So
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, like I said, for me, I guess I've gotten connections from having an online presence. Definitely. I've met people in the industry. They've reached out, and when I had more time, I would interview a couple of those on my YouTube channel. Actually, like I said, I had a pretty big orchestrator that lives and works in LA. You could find that on my channel. His name is escaping me, which I feel so bad right now. It's like, and he's worked on very big projects, being an orchestrator. Like he worked on Lord of the Rings, so I mean, it was big stuff. And it was an honor to talk to him, and I think I found him through the VI Control Discord channel. I just put it out like, hey, I need some people to interview, and he responded. It was so cool. And I've reached out to other people, and a lot of composers are really busy. And I miss doing the interviews too, because you get to see a whole nother side of composers, and
Right.
it's really fun, and you get to learn stuff and just hear their story, and it's really cool. And I know like people like that. It's just like I said, it's a timing thing, and a lot of composers are busy, and I'm busy, so it's like, and then to edit it and all that and upload. So I really do miss doing that. And I noticed now a lot of composers are doing that on their channels. So, and I think when I was doing it, like hardly anybody was doing stuff like that. And I got my idea from Joe Rogan's podcast, because I watched it on YouTube, and I was like, man, that's so cool how he does that. And I was like, man, maybe I should do something like that with composers, kind of be niche based.
Yeah.
That's where I got
awesome.
the idea from.
Right.
So, but yeah, I would say, but me personally, having an online presence hasn't led me to any real work, and it's partially my fault. Like I said, I think that saying what you put in is what you get out of it, but don't expect results right away. Like it's going to take some time for you to build an audience, to build a presence, and to build that. What'd you say, Chris? Like kind of like the. Legitimacy, I guess.
Sure.
Hey, you know what you're talking about. And and even if you are not a master, don't let that sway you from trying to build an online presence. Show your journey. People love that, like showing your journey. Like even if you fail, even if you don't know, share that journey of, okay, hey, this is where I'm at, and then maybe give an update 6 months later and say, hey, I remember when we did this video, well, I've learned this, since then. You could do those types of videos too. And just be personable. That's what works the best, I think, on YouTube, is just being yourself. And remember, not everybody's going to be huge. And plus, we're in a pretty small niche, too. How's your growth been, Chris, since you've been regularly, and how's your traffic and stuff?
Yeah. So I think it was maybe last year I was at 1,000 subscribers. And then I think it was late last year I got to... Like very late last year, I was at 2,000. So I think before March, I was at maybe 25 or so, or something like that.
Okay. And
then at this point, I'm at 2.75. So it's been good. I think I just wanted to add on that, like to in order to do content regularly, you have to enjoy it. Like if it's a chore, then you. You can't really do it. You have to have a good reason to do it. Either you just love being on camera, or you just want to be out there, or if it's giving you work, then you have a reason to do it. I personally happen to enjoy doing it because I was doing it since 2011, and at the time I was only doing piano videos, which I actually didn't enjoy as much because I was, if I was playing classical music, it was like other people's music. But I liked video games, so I liked playing video game music. That was fun. But it wasn't really until I started doing composing videos that I was like, wow, I could actually do this week in and week out. And there have been weeks where I was like, no, I can't do it anymore. I can't do every week. It's just too hard. But this has shown me otherwise. Like if I keep it manageable and make it realistic for myself, then, it's doable. And it's also content that people have asked me for. So, why not? Right. And yeah, it's just been a very, it's been a good learning experience. And hopefully I can do this in the future as well, as I continue to refine myself. So yeah, content is not easy, but anything really can count as content, honestly, like a blog post or a video or Facebook, YouTube lives or whatever it is, just so, people know we're out there, which is always cool. So,
another tip would be Instagram. Like if you're a musician and you play instruments, share that on Instagram, share your music on Instagram, because it's like short little clips and it's very easy to do. You don't have to edit much, and you could just put it out there raw, and people love that stuff. Like especially I think Instagram was built for guitar players, because like there's so many guitar players. Then you got to watch out for the people that are being fake.
Yes.
But anyway. Yeah. I had one quick note. Also, don't expect to make any money off the bat. And even if you do get a lot of traffic, you're probably only going to make $20 a month, if that, on YouTube. Yep. I have about 2,300 subscribers, so I'm like just a little below Chris, but like obviously I've dropped off. I haven't really put out a video that much in over a year. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I was just like Chris. I was very active and doing live streams and all this stuff, and I saw my growth like go really fast. And when you don't upload as much, your growth kind of stagnates because you're out of the algorithm. But yeah, don't expect to make bank. And they don't pay you until you hit $100 anyway. But it's a nice little check that rolls in when you're not expecting, and you can use that for a sample library or whatever.
Right.
But, yeah, don't expect to get paid right away.
Yeah, and also, and one of the other perks about having an online presence is having endorsement deals or being an affiliate marketer for some things. So for I would say 90% of the reviews I do, they're products that I've shown interest. I've saw a lot of potential in it, so I reached out to the developer themselves and asked if they'd be willing to send me an NFR copy for review, and most of the times they said yes, and so we get a mutual exchange that way. And so in addition to that, you can also shout out on like courses, for example. If people do affiliate links and stuff, you can always advertise other people's stuff if you really believe in their product. It's very easy to sniff out if you're not into something, then you're just doing it for the money. So that's not a good idea.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know.
And
it's just interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it leads into like building your own courses. Like if you've built your presence and stuff, this is down the road that you can start offering your own products, your own services on top of your YouTube. You can do a Patreon page if they love what you do to support you. So there's so many avenues. And I was, 2 years ago, I was looking at all this stuff and trying to make it work. And I'm just going to preface, like if you're not in it 100%, and it is a full-time job, I'm telling you. It's not like you can just sit on a camera for 5 minutes and upload it and it all is good. No, it takes editing. I mean, you got to edit your videos, and sometimes I got to take an hour to edit one video, depending on the length. And I mean, just like this podcast, I edit the podcast, and I have to go back and listen. So if we do a 2-hour podcast, I have to listen to this thing for 2 hours and edit it while I go. So,
damn.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. I mean, we're getting to a point where we got this down where I don't have to edit as much. But yeah, so I'm just saying, but like if you have the time and you're young, and even if you're older and your kids are older and stuff like that, me and Curtis are not so fortunate. We have younger. I mean, decent. I mean, we're like what, less than 10 years old, right, Curtis?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're still at that point where we have to. Our kids are kind of finally getting to be responsible, but not where we would like it. So yeah, but I mean, I think in this day and age you have to have an online presence. I mean, like Curtis said, you don't really need one, but he does have one. Like you can find Curtis, you type his name in Google.
Well, I think it's just about like having something that works for you. So for some people that's a giant active super frequent YouTube channel or a Twitter channel or Instagram channel or whatever. For some people that's, I think that's probably more in when you don't have a lot of I worked on this credit stuff to put on there. Like as your list of stuff you've worked on, gets longer, it starts, to me at least, I feel like I don't have to do as much. I just have like a page on my website that says, hey, these are the games I've done, here are the soundtracks, listen to it, right? It's a lot of content for people to actually audition, so it doesn't necessarily need this giant supporting infrastructure of getting out there on YouTube. Now if I wanted to do like sample library reviews and get review copies and be making, content like that, I would need to be much more active because I don't have a lot of that as like a back catalog for me.
Right.
One thing I've always wanted to sort of do more of, I've only done it one time, was to do demos for libraries that are coming out. But to do that, I would need to do, kind of what Chris does and be much more present in that space, and I'm not. So you kind of got to find that place where it works for the thing you want to do, and that's kind of hard, and it takes a long time, and there's this long period of time where you're not doing anything. You're making stuff and you are it's not going anywhere, and it sucks, but you just have to keep going.
Yeah, it's just like your career.
Stop,
it's
it won't work.
It's just like
if
a music
you stop,
career.
it doesn't, like, you're gonna kill it. And so, yeah.
Yep, it's like anything. Also, it's about building community. You're building a community as well. So you're building people that are your followers, that are your supporters, that will back you on anything, and then they'll call you out. So you got to be careful about that too. They will call you out on stuff. And like I said, I think the live streaming on YouTube and Twitch is great. I tried doing the live stream, like composing on Twitch, which was okay. But I just found my audience was on YouTube. And I was like, it just makes more sense because I'd have more viewers on YouTube than I did on Twitch. That's a good example of being flexible, right? Like you notice this other platform is better for you, so you focus on that. Yep.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's the thing you have to do. Like, it's like, I want to be on Twitch, but it's not working for me. And still being on Twitch when you've got this great community over on YouTube is not, you've got to be responsive to that and be willing to kind of like be shift over to the thing that is working for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's hard to break through on Twitch too. There's so many people, and also in the music category is a little funky.
They really need to. They could really support us a little better there. They support, I feel like, other non-gaming stuff a lot better.
Yeah,
because like, the problem with the music category is that there's like people who are there like playing drums live or whatever.
Yeah.
And people playing piano covers and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just that's not the same as like making content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I liked it better when you could just set yourself as like IRL or whatever, and whatever.
I mean, Daniel James, he streams on Twitch a lot, but he's got a following, and he's been on Twitch for a long time.
Well, and he does a really good job of being. This is a good example of somebody who does regular, very predictable content. Like, it's every Saturday, right? Like, if you go into our little Composing Made Simple Discord, there's the live stream thing. If you look every Saturday, Hybrid 2 is live.
Yep.
Hybrid 2 is live. Hybrid 2 is live. Hybrid 2 is live.
And you have to be consistent. That's another.
So
thing.
He's found a day that works for him. He's like, he has a lot of stuff like me where he can't stream what he's working on.
Right.
But on Saturdays he's there, because it's the day he's off, quote unquote, from his quote unquote job work.
Right.
So, and he does it, and that's great for him, and that gets him a lot of exposure. I should probably do that.
Well, that's the thing too that we didn't cover. Is you have to be consistent.
Saturday.
Yeah, you have to be consistent when you do a content creation.
You have to be consistent. And my point is that you have to be sometimes you have to be consistent on a schedule that works for you.
Yep.
Like, I think a lot of people get like, it's great that Chris is doing this like upload a video every day thing. I think that's awesome because that works for him. I think some people look at that and say, I could never ever do that. It's like, well, you don't have to necessarily do that. You can do it every Saturday. But
there's some channels that just once a month. I mean,
right? It has to be. Well, and you got to understand that as you space it out more is expected of you too, right?
Sure,
like
right.
a YouTube channel that posts once every 3 months, like those. There's those great behind the scenes game documentaries, No Clip. They post a video like once, maybe every 3 months, but it's an extremely high quality, like broadcast quality documentary, right?
Right.
Like that's different than me uploading a 5-minute video of me talking into a camera once a week. Those are different, right? And so you have to, again, it just goes back to that idea of going with the flow and understanding what works for you and finding that space that works for you in your schedule. Because let's be honest, most of the people that are trying to get into this have another job, and so like finding a schedule that works for that job and that allows them to have a healthy balance of their life, their social media presence, their composing career, whatever that is, and their job is a delicate balancing act. And Todd talks about this all the time, but if you're trying to do something that manifestly is going to burn you out, that's not your niche. Maybe your niche is then once a week, maybe your niche then is once a month, maybe your niche then
find what works. But like you said, find what works best for you, because you will get burned out. I mean, it will happen.
Right.
It will find like, oh, this is just like a job. This is tedious. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But if you love it, then, don't be afraid to readjust your content production schedule. Say, okay, I can't do 3 times a week. I'll do twice a week or once a week. It's fine. Do what works for you. At the end of the day, it's what works for you.
And when you do that, but you still have to have that, that drive to actually do that. Like if you're going to once a week, you better do it once a week. Yeah. Because that's the other thing, right? Like if you miss your once a week, that matters a lot more than if you miss it once a day.
Yep. Exactly.
And so you just have to kind of understand those things. This podcast is a great example. Yeah. Like if we could do this more than once a month, we absolutely would, because we really enjoy it. But it's, it's hard to get 3 people together at the same time. Yeah. I watched the sun come up this morning so that we could record, right? Like it requires you to actually do things, right? And actually commit to it. But we missed that 1 month, and I'm sure we saw some drop in our numbers, but we're back on it now.
Yeah. And that was just due to scheduling and me being on vacation. It's just a whole bunch of stuff happened. And,
sure. Yeah. And it's like, I guess my point being that once a month mostly works for us. Yeah. If we tried to do this once a week, this would be. That's why we have a picks of the quote unquote week. Yeah. It should probably be like picks of the podcast or picks
picks of the month or whatever.
Right, picks of the month or something, which is probably better for sample libraries anyway. But but like that. I guess I'm just bringing that up as that's a good example, right? Where we're not trying to do this once a day. We're not trying to put out a daily podcast. Yes, we could never do it. No. But at the same time, we're also pretty, I would say, aside from a couple of little times where, there's been unavoidable scheduling conflicts, this pretty much comes out every month. Yeah, because, I set an alarm because missing this recording would be a big deal, right? Yeah. And so it's just, it's that everything comes down to that balance, right? Of understanding that this is important, but at the same time, you have to find how it works for you, and sort of having that Zen, I guess, sort of look at it where it's like commitment and flexibility kind of have to come together, and you have to find how those interact. So
we've been doing this for 2 years, which is crazy to think about this, because like I said, we tell the story all the time. Is basically my first interview was Curtis on my YouTube. That was my first one, and like I said, I was a fan of Curtis. Like years before that, I watched his videos and found him on YouTube, and me and him just started talking. And then, I was like, hey man, can I interview? And he's like, yeah, sure. And, we hit it off pretty well. And then, like I said, Chris came on one of my live streams, and I was like, well, me and him got along pretty well too. And initially the podcast was just going to be me and Curtis. And like, that was how it was initially going to be. And then I was like, well, what about Chris? And me and Curtis talked about it. I was like, yeah, let's try it. And then we just all talked, and we all got along. And like I said, we do this because we love talking to each other. This gives us a time to once a month. I look forward to this because I could talk music and talk shop with 2 other people that are just as passionate as me. And we're not getting paid. This is costing me money every month to do this. So it's like we just do it because we love to do it, and we know there's people out there that will love to hear our 3 perspectives. We're all in different stages of our career. Like, I'm more of a hobbyist. Curtis is more kind of established and, has got some stuff under his belt. And Chris is kind of just getting started. Well, not so much now. When we first started the podcast, he was, pretty much right out of school. But now you've got some stuff under your belt. And it's like, I think for a listener, it doesn't matter where you're at in your career. We can provide great, 3 different opinions and, honest, truthful opinions. And we're not, BSing here at any time. We're always telling you the truth. even like if there's a failure, or like for me especially, I've been pretty transparent. I come out and say like, yeah, I'm not really pursuing this as a career. So what does that help? But there might be a lot of people out there that are in the same position as me, so they're not alone. And that's why I do this. And I just love talking to Chris and Curtis every month. So I look forward to it. So
yeah,
awesome. I think that's good for online presence. I think there's a lot of stuff in there.
Awesome.
And it's just, at the end of the day, you got to love it and do it because you want to help people. That's why I did it. Because I remember when I first got started in this, how frustrated I was. And I tried to look on YouTube, and like there was no videos at the time when I got started. And I was like, well, if I ever find anything or give tips or whatever, something I find out, I'll just share it with other people, because I'm sure other people will enjoy it. And that's how I got started. Right. And here we are. And people still find my videos. And that's why I said I try to do content that will live on 5-10 years after I put it out. I try to, it's more of a philosophy than it is like of something. And that's why I kind of shied away from doing like sample library reviews, because like they're only cool for that, but yet people come back and maybe a year later if they just find that library. So I don't know, just pick your thing that you want to do and just go do it.
Yeah, and building upon that, actually, sample library reviews are some of the most viewed videos on my channel. So I mean, I have a reason to continue doing those also. So, but It's like, yeah, you just got to find the content that speaks the most to your viewers. And one of my videos about like string arranging and stuff, that was a more viewed video. So like, the more you do it, the more you kind of have a sense of what your audience wants. And if you built your presence upon basically doing one type of thing and your audience likes that, then you don't really have a reason to change it, or else you might alienate some people. So, but
it's always good to experiment with new stuff. I'll tell you, template walkthrough videos, people love them. So those are probably my highest ranking ones. Usually work very well. And like for you, Curtis, that might be a cool thing for you to do. Like to throw up on your channel like once a quarter. Like, hey, here's my new template that I'm working with, and I use this and this. That's something that you could do.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to our second topic of the show, is native instruments. I got an email, actually, yesterday, and after May 31st, it will no longer be possible to register a number of discontinued products from Native Instruments. The ones they listed in the email was Guitar Rig versions 1 and 2, Battery 1 and 2, and Komplete 2 through 4. And then they have a link to their knowledge base. So we clicked on this list, and wow, we'll put a link in the show notes to this, but there is a lot of stuff. So basically they're legacy products that nobody's updating or stuff like that, and third-party ones, they're just going to discontinue. So there's some stuff from Native Instruments like Absinthe 2, 3, FM7, Guitar Rig 2. Some other ones is East West, and I think, Curtis, you said these East West was when they were actually in the Contact library?
Yeah, this was when East West used to do Contact libraries.
Yeah, so all those are going to be going away. But
it looks like all of them,
Yeah, all of them. But let's preface this. If you have them installed, you can keep using them, correct?
It's new registrations and activations. Basically, they're shutting down the activation server, is what it looks like.
Yeah. Some stuff from Best Service, Zero G, Big Fish Audio, and a few other ones. But yeah, we'll link the their support page in thing to check it out to see if you own any of this stuff. But we thought we would mention this. It's kind of understandable after, if you're not updating products, and if these things are 10, I mean, heck, at this point, it could be even 15 years old at this point. Why bother? Because I think they have to pay a license to this. But if it's Native Instruments stuff, they're just basically killing it off. They're doing Apple. They're just killing.
I think all of this stuff is uses an older DRM scheme. I think that like after whatever the oldest or the youngest, whatever the youngest product on this list is, was the last product to use a specific kind of DRM authorization. They switched to a new kind. So this is all a kind of DRM they haven't used in a long time.
Okay.
And again, I'm sure it's just a box sitting in Native Instruments headquarters that just sits on the internet and waits for people to try to, register their purchases and responds to them. Then I'm sure that probably does cost some money. I don't know. I look at something like this and I'm like, I totally get it. If you want me to have a USB key and you want me to go online and register your product, that is fine. I do not mind doing those things. But if you're going to stop running the server, you need to have like a switch you can flip where, that's, I don't need your server anymore. Right? I think there needs
or just
to
cancel
be
the license or whatever, just make it free or whatever.
Something. You got to have something because, this is not, I know they're 10 years old, some of these things, but 10 years is not that long. Like I said, on the VI control thread about this, there's a couple of composers on there who work on some pretty big franchises who are talking about how, whenever the franchise has a new installment, they, load up the original theme or whatever, and they make a new version for the new installment, and they said, look, this is, they list products on here that they use to do that, and it's like, yeah, that seems totally fair and reasonable. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess I think you as a developer, you've benefited from having this be copy protected for its life, and that's totally great and cool, and I support you there. I'm not an anti-DRM person, but if you're going to turn it off, I think you have a responsibility to make it continue to work. So as far as one of the reasons I wanted to mention this wasn't just because, I just want to give people a heads up. If you own these libraries, know that this is coming, and you've got about couple of months to get this all set up, and it might be worth making a disk image, something. These are older libraries. Maybe they don't require as many resources. Maybe it's possible to spin these up in a virtual machine and store the disk image or something. I don't know. There's got to be a way to keep it going in an installed version. But I'd start looking at that now and start figuring out what you're going to do. Or some people have resampled these libraries. Actually, there's somebody in there who says that they just went and just straight up resampled this library into ESX format, so that they can still use it. I mean, obviously they can't make that available to anyone else, but maybe that's what you got to start thinking about doing. So anyway, just a heads up, and we'll keep our eye on this, I guess. And if somebody comes up with a way to kind of get around this, I will try to mention it on the next podcast. I think we still get at least one more podcast before they are no longer letting these install.
May 31st, so there should be 2 more.
There should be 2 more. Okay, well, I will try to keep it. I think maybe a virtual machine would be the best way. Boot up a virtual machine in Windows, get these installed, and save that disk image, and see if you can maybe use Vienna to somehow get in there. I don't know.
Well,
they shouldn't be.
Go ahead.
They shouldn't be that system heavy because they're really old.
Yeah,
so I think you could. I think you should be able to run it in a virtual machine. But
definitely. I mean, you should be able to. The basically is if you haven't installed currently, you're fine. But everybody's gonna eventually move on to a new computer, so you can't reinstall these and reactivate. But I wonder.
Yeah, after me. Yeah.
So if you do reinstall, it's probably gonna go out to try to reactivate and it won't work. That's probably what's gonna happen. But I mean, if there's a way that they could just turn off that reactivation, and then everything would be okay.
I think the problem is the way Contact works is that. So I've been looking at the thread, and they're saying that So when people use quote-unquote cracked Contact libraries, they're actually not using a cracked version of the library. They're using a cracked version of Contact that just doesn't try to authorize.
Okay.
So that's the only way to get around it, is to do something like that, which, of course, Native Instruments is never going to
approve of.
Well, not just approve of, but allow you to do, because they can't just stop activation on certain libraries. They would have to do it on all their libraries, and then it's a free for all.
Or they could just create a new Contact instance that does that, and then these ones work on there.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Like their free version or
something. I really do think that you need to have a plan here, guys.
I mean, they're just doing the Apple thing, man. Like, we're just killing it, and sorry, move on. Because they probably made most of this stuff in a new library anyway. Ooh, looks like Chris Hine horns. Wow, a lot of stuff from Best Service. I'm sure we'll link to that VI control thread too, just so maybe they can people can check it as well.
I didn't know Symphonic Choirs was ever available in Contact, but apparently it is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, some of the stuff is very old, but still, I mean, there's people out there that are running older systems that don't upgrade all the time because it works, and bless those people, because you don't need much. I mean, we've
back up your crap.
Yeah. But I think the virtual
You can
machine is
always
probably the best option.
Yeah, virtual machine, because it reduces an entire computer to a single file that you can then keep forever and
Yeah.
keep backing up and back up to the cloud and do all that stuff. But
Cool. All right.
All right.
All right, we're going to move on to our final thing is our picks of the month, I guess. We're going to change the name, or we should just say our picks of the show. I think that will be a better
Sure.
one. So I'll go first. This one's kind of a special one for me. I've been waiting since the day I started playing guitar to get one of these. So Gibson, if nobody's not known, in the past couple of years have not really been the greatest company with their guitars.
Ooh.
They're the way they used to build them and stuff was just horrible. And it's Gibson. I mean, everybody knows what a Gibson Les Paul is, right? I mean, even if you don't even play guitar, you know what it is if I tell you.
Yeah, even I know what it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so iconic. The
Yeah.
Fender Stratocaster is the next guitar. So those are the two probably most iconic shaped guitars. Well, anyway, so Gibson has under new management, and they went back to the way like Gibson used to be. Like, hey, we're gonna do a Gibson Les Paul standard the way a Gibson Les Paul standard is made to be. So they went back to the 50s and 60s version. So I actually purchased a Gibson Les Paul standard, and they lowered their prices.
Nice.
And I've been waiting since I first started playing guitar to have a Gibson Les Paul, and I finally acquired one. I bought one, a brand new one, and I have a few things that but I think this was more due to the company that I bought it from. They probably didn't do their check. There a couple of the knobs, the volume knobs are like off-centered. They're not right. They don't match up with the numbers. That's an easy fix. But other than that, everything on the guitar is damn solid and plays. This is the best guitar I've ever owned in my life. I mean, like. And I've owned a lot of guitars, but this is probably most expensive and best piece of instrument I've ever owned in my life, and I love it.
Wow.
But yeah, I've been waiting over 20 years to own one because they were just so expensive. Like I think back in like you can get a Les Paul for like like 6,000. I mean, depending on what kind. But I think the regular standards were like I think 3,500 to 4,000, and they've come down a lot. I think they dropped the price like 1,000 or something like that. So yeah, and it comes with a case, and it's just like I'm in heaven. So, but like I said, when I first started playing guitar, that's the guitar I wanted. I remember going with my dad to get my first real guitar, and back then I think this is when Epiphone started doing the Les Paul, or maybe they were doing it before. So this would have been '96. I mean, a long time ago. Yeah, it's dating me. But it didn't play well. Even when I was a first starting out guitar player, I could tell a crappy instrument, by the sound. And
Sure.
I went with a different guitar, but I always wanted a Les Paul shape. But I finally got one because I like Slash. He plays one. Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin plays one. I mean, they all play them. But anyway, yeah. So that's my pick, and that'll probably be my pick for the end of time.
A while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I'll find out. But for right now,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that like really is. It's kind of gotten me back into like, all right, man, I got to do more guitar music and rock and stuff. So it's been great.
That's great. Yeah, I'll go next. So I can shout out two libraries that I recently reviewed on my channel. So number one is Storm Choir Ultimate from Strezov Sampling, and it's basically their culmination of all the choir efforts up to this point. And they basically gathered a newly recorded male and female choir each, as well as some soloists, and it's basically intended for really epic music, and the dynamics are quite large. The only thing is that if you're looking for kind of a really pristine type of recording and something that has like all the detail you could look for, you might not find that in this library. It has a very specific sound to it that's more rustic, and it's a little more rough around the edges. So just be careful of that. Also, the interface is good. It's nice to look at and all that. But I personally don't find it the most intuitive to use because you have to understand how their polylegato system works and their all that kind of things. So you just have to kind of watch over the overview videos and play around for yourself. But the sound itself is very good for those specific purposes. I wouldn't consider them absolute workhorses if you are looking for, a very, very general purpose library. But for what it does very well. And the other library is Pandora from Project Sam. It's their newest Symphobia library. Many people were surprised about it because they were expecting something more along the lines of the first three, but this one is entirely devoted to like horror and action scoring, which is kind of interesting. And people were also kind of turned off by the price tag. It's like around $750 US for basically an effects library. Also some multi-sampled percussion and of course the rest of the orchestra, but it's mostly effects based. One of the biggest selling points for the library is the adaptive sync function, where if you play a note or a patch at any point in your bar, it'll automatically line up to the next downbeat of the next bar. So that's can be very cool.
That
saves a lot of time. Yeah, it's just a really cool function. And you don't have to have it set to that though. You could have it set to a certain number of beats. You could change. You could set it to the amount of bars you want it to go. But the most useful one, personally, I think in most cases, is the adaptive sync function. So Cinesamples kind of did something like this with their Cinestrings runs many years ago, but this library kind of brought it up to light. So it's very interesting. And if you're writing that style of music, you might find it a worthwhile investment if you are in the industry for this type of thing. If not, then there are other libraries who do similar things. Just, do your research, make sure you like the sound before you invest, and really see if it's going to pay off for you. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. That sounds really cool. So my pick of the week is not a sample library because I haven't even looked at what sample libraries are out in like a month or two. So, if there's like some amazing thing, sorry I missed it. But my pick of the week is a soundtrack. It's for a game that's coming out, I believe, tomorrow. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I don't know if you've heard the first Ori and the Blind Forest soundtrack, but it's good. It's just transcendent, and it's so pretty. It's such a pretty game. Everything about it is pretty. I saw that this was out on Spotify and was and thought, oh, this would be a great thing to throw in as my pick. So it's by Gareth Coker, who also did Ark Survival Evolved, which is a completely different sort of style. Just really lovely, beautiful music to listen to. Really good use of tonal percussion is sort of one of his real big things in this, and it just really is lovely. It's a ton of music too. It's like 180 something minutes or something, so it's a lot of music. So it's a real treat. I'm really glad that it's out. So that is my pick for the week or the month or the podcast. Pick of the podcast. Pick of the show. Picks. Eventually, one of these days, I will start saying it right on the first try, but it is not this day.
Yes.
The day may come.
We'll get it. All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude this episode of the Composing Made Simple podcast. As always, you can head on over to our website, composingmadesimple.com. You can find all of our social media links, everything that we talked about. Also, there is a link to our Discord channel, which we always mention on every show. Usually, I think Curtis mentioned it earlier. Head on over there. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. Nothing. You can get on in there. And there's days that it's active, some days it's not, but there's a lot of great people in there. They'll help you with any of your questions. There's me, Curtis, and Chris are in there usually all the time. Once in a while, we're in there as much as we can be in there, but there's other helpful people in there. So just go on over there and say hello and say you're a fan. But other than that, go ahead.
Happy to see you. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we'll love to see you. We'll love to help you and share your music. I always love hearing new people's music because it gives me motivation to go, damn it, I got to get in there and do more. So it's always great to hear what people are up to. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another episode next month. Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.